Money. I want money. Lots and lots of money. Well, I'm not one of those people that's really into money. And that's kind of a problem. I'm looking at Social Security that's going to be so small, partially because I don't have records to report the income that I earned in Indonesia, and partially it wouldn't matter anyways because I earned so little most of the time that I was in Indonesia that it'd be not much better than what I'm getting now. But I'm looking at a Social Security income on retirement that will be below the poverty line substantially. So that's going to suck. So unless I can figure out or get a really great job, I'm going to end up really, really struggling. So money is often said to be the root of all evil, and they say money doesn't buy you happiness, and people say a lot of other things about money. Some of them are true, some of them aren't. But I want to address the elephant in the room. Well, at least for me, it's an elephant. And that is that, first of all, money is not the root of all evil. It's an inanimate object. Okay? You can't say that it is the root of all evil. Because if you replace it with gold, or you replace it with food, or water, or any other desirable object in its own context, the same thing can happen as with money. So it's not the inanimate objects that are the problem, it's us. We're the problem. Okay? Second thing, money can't buy you happiness. No, it can't. However, money can buy you a house that you don't have to pay off for the next 30 years. Money can pay for your child's education so that they don't have to spend 20 years paying off their loans for their degree. Money can allow you to go traveling. Money can allow you to repair your car whenever it needs to be repaired and not have to wait until it's risky. Money can reduce financial stress in a relationship, which can lead to all kinds of problems, okay? Now think about this. Do you think that rich people who don't financially struggle have the same problems that the rest of us have? As far as what's related to financial struggle, okay? That is highly unlikely. They've got tons of money, okay? Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions or billions of dollars at their disposal. These people don't have stress from financial poverty, from financial difficulties, unless they're just being jackasses and throwing their money away faster than they can earn it. Then that's their own fault. They don't deserve sympathy for mismanaging their money. If you believe that money is not important and that you shouldn't worry about money, well, it's very idealistic, and I'm an idealistic person, and for a long time I felt that way. But it's also setting you up for a lifetime of trouble because you're not going to manage your money well. You're not going to have money set aside for the future. You're not going to earn a lot of money, potentially. If you don't have a lot of money in a relationship, unless you've got a partner who is supportive and is not concerned about this problem as well, and unless you never have major health problems, it's a problem. Okay. A lot of divorces happen because of, directly or indirectly, financial stresses. Okay? How many people do you think become addicts because they're trying to escape the pressures of financial problems? How many people do you think become chronically ill, develop cancer, become abusive, become alcoholics because of financial stress? How many people do you think fight each other because of this stress? the list goes on and on. I mean, there's a story I just watched on Real Stories on YouTube about this guy named Richard Minnick, who he had been in a minor car accident and had his head had bumped the back of the head, or had bumped the headrest, and a couple weeks later he lost his memory. So I watched it, and as I watched it, I started to realize that what was going on. I mean, it was very suspicious because amnesia doesn't happen 2 weeks after an accident. It would be immediate. So I was immediately suspicious, and then I started hearing certain things that were indicators to me that this guy had suffered some kind of a psychological break. He had been. What I mean is this: you could be put into crisis situations where you are faced with impossible choices, and your mind will snap and make one of those decisions for you, and just kind of change who you are. So in Richard Minnick's case, he had been in banking, and something had happened. He had ended up having to do a deposition against his employer after being fired. He had been blackballed by the banking industry, and he had not been successful in starting his own businesses. And life, he was not one of those people who was, and as far as I could tell from the video, he was not somebody who was particularly strong about dealing with adversity. And like, he would move his family regularly, saying, "Oh, when we move, everything's going to be better," that kind of thing. Well, by the end of the movie, they had found there had been a court case against the insurance company of the guy who had hit them, and the diagnosis had indeed been a type of psychological break in which all the pressures of the huge amount of money that he owed, and the difficulties in making a business work, and he had started to be abusive towards his second wife's children, and or sorry, was it second wife's or first wife's? Well, anyways, he had started being abusive for some time, and all this other stuff was going on. He was always somebody with a short temper, apparently, but it had gotten worse, and with all the stress. When you're stressed out a lot, you get a short temper, trust me. I speak from personal experience. And his brain was tortured between the choices of, well, he didn't know how to get out of his situation. He wanted out, but he didn't know how to get out. The only way would have been to abandon everybody, his family, his friends, and start over again. But he couldn't do that, so his mind made the choice for him, and he woke up one day and could no longer remember anybody, and eventually he distanced himself from his family. So anyways, all of these things are caused by financial stress. So I'm going to tell you right now, it is important to have money. It is important to manage your money well. So, for example, every month when you get your check, take at least 10% and save it away for your retirement. Put it in a 401k or an IRA or whatever. Get a fiduciary to help you make investments. Don't get a financial advisor. They charge too much. Get a fiduciary. FIDUCIARY. Get another amount of money that is saved up over a period of months, that will, if you lose your job, if something bad happens where you can't work for a while and you're not going to have income, that you'll have money set aside that you can readily access. It can be sitting in an interest-bearing account, but make sure you can survive an emergency. I mean, we just went through a pandemic. How many of you were not prepared for that? I, despite all my troubles financially, I was prepared for that. I had money set aside. I also was fortunate enough to be able to get state aid. But I urge you to stop living on credit. Be clever about the credit, okay? Buy something with a credit card, pay it off quickly, immediately if possible. That was my strategy. I used to, before I went overseas, I had a very high credit score because I would buy something and in one or two payments I would pay off the whole thing. Even if it was, hundreds or thousands of dollars, I would pay it off very quickly. Now I have no credit because I was gone for so long, and I haven't made any effort to rebuild that. So make good decisions about credit. Use credit only when necessary, only when you already have the cash to make some or most or all of the payment. Okay, if possible. I understand that's probably not going to be possible for most people when it comes to a house, but at least for cars. Okay, vehicles. Don't make frivolous purchases when you have other expenses. Put your monthly expenses first, and then look at what you have left over. Save some of it for a rainy day. Save some of it for gifts. Save some of it for whatever. But keep a portion for your retirement. Keep a portion for emergency situations that might last you months. Okay. The next thing is don't go to banks. Don't use banks. Okay. Trust me on this. Banks don't give a flying you know what about you unless you've got tons of money, and then they'll kiss your butt. Okay? If you're just the average person like me, they don't care. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, my mom needed some financial assistance, and she had helped me many times, and I happened to be in a position where I could send her some money. And I also wanted to make a donation to an environmental cause that I supported. So I wrote out a $100 check for the environmental cause, and I wrote a $500 check out for my mom. And I sent them. But I had accidentally put the checks in the opposite envelopes. So the $500 check for my mom went to the environmental agency. My mom got a $100 check, which of course she couldn't do anything about. But the $500 check came back cashed, and I was baffled. I was like, how is it that the bank did not notice that it was addressed to my mom and not that environmental agency? How is it the environmental agency did? Well, they get lots and lots of checks every day, so they probably just didn't realize. They probably assumed that every check that came to them was for them, and so they made a massive deposit with a lot of other checks. And guess what I learned? I went to the bank to complain, and they said, well, oops, sorry. Oh, darn it. My car's light went off. Oh, no. There we go. So, sorry about that. They explained to me that checks under $5,000 were not checked. They didn't bother to verify. And the lady felt so horrible about what had happened that she said, well, here, this is a $20 long-distance calling card that's, for your troubles. That's how little they cared. I was offended. And eventually I left that bank. And now I use what you should be using, which is a credit union. Credit unions, first of all, are nonprofit. They are customer-oriented. They generally will have shorter lines and treat you better. And there are other benefits that credit unions offer that banks generally don't offer. So I would definitely encourage you to get into that and try to ignore this idea that you have to reject money. You don't have to reject money. Money is a tool for transactions, to simplify transactions as opposed to bartering or trading. And until a better system arises, or you can make a different system that operates among you and other people that have agreed to this other system, that's what there is. There's money. Learn to make good use of it. And think about your future. Think about your spouse's future or your mate's future. Think about your children's future. Think about your pet's future. Think about the future of the world. I mean, if that's your thing, but don't believe some of the things that are said about money that are very negative about the desire to have money. There's nothing wrong with having money. Now, me personally, I don't think anybody needs more than a couple $1,000,000. I think that anything more than that is an excessive amount of money, and it gives that person too much power. How many regular Joes like you and me do you think can call up the president and say, hey, I'd like to have a meeting with you tomorrow? None, right? How many millionaires and billionaires can call up the president and say, I want to have a meeting with you, and actually get that meeting, and actually get to talk to the president about the meeting? Yeah, that's the thing. They have too much power. Well, then again, this is not a democracy, this is a plutocracy, but that's a whole other video. Anyways, I hope that my information, my advice sits well with you, and that you will consider it and act on it. And thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.